Welcome to the Therapy Show podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Mustard. In each episode, I interview a seasoned and knowledgeable talk therapist from the counseling world to glean valuable insights, techniques, and tools that you can apply to your practice and your life. And if you're considering a career in the counseling field or just want to hear about what it's like to be a talk therapist, then this is the podcast for you. I have a truly remarkable guest whose journey is nothing short of extraordinary. In this episode, I'm talking with Shawn Balva, a man who has faced and overcome challenges that many of us could hardly imagine. From being a promising young quarterback to a struggle with addiction and a journey through the criminal justice system, Shawn's story is a testament to the power of redemption and the human spirit. Shawn's experiences have shaped him into a motivational speaker and an advocate for mental health and addiction recovery. His story is not just about the pitfalls of life, but about finding light in the darkest of places and using that light to guide others. You can learn more about Shawn over on his website, shawnbalva.com, and connect with him over on Instagram. So sit back, tune in, and prepare to be moved by Shawn's incredible journey from despair to hope, from the football field to a life of meaningful impact. This is an episode you won't want to miss. All right. Well, hey, friends, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Mustard, and this week's guest is Shawn Balva. Welcome to the show. Shawn, did I say that right?
Balva, Shawn
Balva.
Balva.
Okay,
Thank you, though.
sorry about that.
Yes,
Shawn Balva. I will
that's
make a
fine.
note. So Shawn has a really fascinating and interesting life story, and you're only in your late 20s at this point. Is that right?
Yes, 28.
Okay, 28. So I am really curious to see where you go in your 30s because you've lived a life already. So can you,
Yes.
so I would love it if you would take a few sentences and just explain to my audience like who you are, what you do now, and how you help other people.
Okay, so I guess in a few sentences, I'm somebody who went through like a lot of trauma growing up, a lot of feelings of being lost and emptiness. Right. I was a big time football player growing up from like the age of 9 to 18. I ended up getting into drug addiction. I had a very bad drug addiction for 4 or 5 years, starting at the age of 16. That drug addiction ultimately led me to prison, where I was given an 8 year prison sentence for an armed robbery. And this all came about not because I was a bad person or anything, but I was dealing with unresolved mental health issues and, like I said, feelings of emptiness and being lost. So I went to prison, and I did 6 years. And that's where I found God. I found my foundation. I found healthy ways to deal with life and stress. And now that I'm out after 6 long years, I just go around talking to, especially like teenagers who are struggling with the same things that I was struggling with, and I'm able to connect with them, on a level that their parents, coaches, and teachers and rabbis can't connect with them because they see myself in them. Um, yeah, so that's a little bit about what I'm doing now, and it's great. It's amazing that after so many years of struggling and pain, there is a light at the end of the tunnel.
Right. Right. And you wrote a book, right?
Yes.
Okay. When did you write that book?
So I wrote the book in 2019,
Mm-hmm.
while I was incarcerated.
Okay.
I had a workout partner. I used to work out every single day in prison in the morning. And he used to tell me, like, you have an amazing story, a very interesting story that people can learn from. You should write a book about it. And we were locked in our cells for like a week. That was like a normal thing in prison, where they would lock us in an 8 by 11 foot cell for, weeks at a time, months at a time, for whatever reason, like COVID or fighting in the prison. But it's, in every bad situation, good things can come about. And because I was so locked in, I had like that creative spark, and I wrote my whole book in a week, actually, in 2019, when we were locked in.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I can't even imagine. Like
Yeah.
I can't imagine. Okay, so there's so much we could talk about and I have so many
Yes.
questions. So maybe share with, I mean, because I've listened to you on other podcasts, so I know a good bit about your story, but can you take us back to your high school years because you were that good of a quarterback that you were being recruited by colleges. So
Yes.
take us back to what that was like for you.
So I really started getting good at football at like the age of 12 years old.
Mhm.
And that's where I started to get looked at by an ex-professional quarterback, Randall Cunningham. And he took me under his wing right before I went to high school. And he trained me, he got me really prepared for high school. So by the time I got to high school, I was like a very high level athlete.
Mhm.
I was, if I would have kept going the way that I was, the direction that I was going, I would have definitely made it to a Division I college, and I would have made it to the NFL. So my first like 2 years of high school, I was doing very well. And then junior year, that's when I got into drugs, right? Like I went to a party one night and I just, one thing led to the next, one drug after the next. And then I became a full blown drug addict. But also like in high school, that's when I started to like, I asked myself now, like, why would somebody who has everything going for them, why would they pick up a drug addiction? Obviously there's something missing over there. There's some type of mental health issue that they're dealing with, right? Some type of emptiness. So I realized back then that's what was going on. Even
Mhm.
though I was so good at football, um, I was dealing with, you know, depression, anxiety,
Yeah.
even as a young kid,
Yeah. I hope this is okay to ask, but do
for
you
sure.
do you know what the cause was for you? Like,
The only thing I could think of, because I haven't really pinpointed it yet,
mhm.
I know that I grew up like in a divorce home, a single parent home. That definitely had an effect. Also, I think just like I don't know, there's a lot of I see like today, there's a lot of young kids who just have like general anxiety and depression. Like they might come from a home where both parents are in the house. It's just something that like we're dealing with today that it's a big problem,
Mhm.
mental health. So I
Yeah.
haven't pinpointed it. All I know is that at as a young kid, I started feeling depressed, anxious, out of
Yeah.
nowhere,
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, thanks for sharing that. Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so you started using drugs at 16, you said? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And then what happened next? You're still playing football, right? Like,
Yeah. So I was playing football, and that's kind of what reinforced my drug addiction because I was playing so well,
mhm.
right? So I'm performing and then I'm going to do drugs. So why stop doing drugs? I'm having fun in my mind. That's what I'm doing. I would play my games and then after the game, go out and party with my friends. And that's what I did for the next couple of years of my high school career. I was a full blown drug addict and while at the same time performing at a high level.
Yeah, you must
Yes.
have been a really good football player to be able to
Yeah.
do that. I mean, really
Yes.
amazing.
I just, you know what it is too? Like I had the talent, but I really put in a lot of work. I put in a lot of effort,
Hmm.
for years. It was my everything,
Hmm.
and it's funny because I wasn't so good when I first started playing football, but it just shows that when a person like really, they're eating, breathing, and living something, they can become good at it,
Hmm.
So yeah, I became very good by the
Hmm.
time I was getting ready to hopefully go to colleges, which didn't happen.
Right, right.
Yes.
And were your parents supportive? And also, did they know you were using drugs?
Yeah, my mom was very supportive. She was like, like my football dream was her football dream,
Mm.
right? She used to drive me to practice. She used to be at all the games. She was fully there, fully supportive. Um, so when she saw that I started doing drugs, she was like devastated, right? And she could tell, because I would come home like my eyes would be red or my eyes would be low, and it, there's a scent to the drugs or something like that. So she definitely knew, and that was heartbreaking for
Hmm.
her for sure.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. And what about your dad? Was he in the picture at this point?
So my dad, they divorced when I was 5 years old.
Mhm.
So he was never really like physically in the picture. Like he was out of in different states, or even if he was in the state, I didn't really see him too much. So I can't say that I really grew up with a father. You know what I mean? So that definitely had a an impact. I mean, today, now that I'm an adult and I understand certain things, I understand, I learned how to deal with that, right? And now I have a really good relationship with my dad. But yeah, he wasn't around growing up.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So what happened with the football career, and then how did you go from football career to robbing,
Yeah.
burglary?
So at age 16 and a half, when I went to that first party, I drank alcohol for the first time. And then for the next, like every week after that, I would go out and party and drink. And then maybe after like a few weeks, I started to dabble with marijuana. And then I started dabbling later on with pills, and just basically one thing like led to the next. And that's what I always tell people now, like if they do decide to take drugs or drink alcohol, it never gets better. Like it's always going to get worse. So it went from alcohol to marijuana to pills, and then because that high wasn't enough, I started stealing, right? And my stealing started with like gas stations or like phones or money, like small stuff, right? And then eventually it turned into, and I'm doing this all while being a football player, the quarterback of the team. I was even stealing from my teammates, right? It's crazy. And eventually I would say about like 17 and a half, I'm deep into the drug addiction. The night before my third game of my senior year, I was clean for like 3 weeks. I said like a prayer to God before the season started that let me have a good year and I'll stay away from the drugs. So I did that. But the night before my third game, I went out and smoked marijuana with a friend. And the next morning, I was randomly drug tested, right? And with that random drug test, I was kicked off the football team, and that's how my high school career ended. If you could imagine, I was devastated, heartbroken. I didn't know how to deal with it, so I went super deep into the drug addiction and super deep into the stealing and criminal lifestyle. I was selling drugs, and because selling drugs is a dangerous thing, I was actually I was like robbed at gunpoint. Somebody pointed a gun at my head. So I went out and I got my own protection, and I had a gun with me for like 6 months. And then one night, because I was so like high out of my mind, I was on like five different drugs. I robbed convenience stores. I robbed like seven convenience stores, and I was arrested. It's crazy to see how it went from like something so little to something so big,
Mhm.
but it's so it's so like if somebody who's been in this type of life where they've been on drugs, it's so understandable because once you like have a drug problem, it's like the craziest things can happen. Just like how like just anything in life, you like with your podcast, you decided in the beginning to do something different, and now you're doing something else too. Like
Yeah.
it's you can go to unimaginable places.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. It's kind of like once you let your guard down and you do one
Yes.
thing, it's like, well, that wasn't so bad. I'm still here.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the next thing that's going to give me that rush or give me
For
that?
sure.
No, I used to work in addiction treatment, and
Mm.
so I remember hearing those stories a good bit,
Yeah,
from
for
certain
sure.
people. And okay, okay. So, all right, gosh. So then you decide to rob, was it 8 stores?
It
7.
was seven
Okay.
seven stores, and
Uh-huh.
it was like one person on the side of the road. It was a crazy. This all happened in one night. It was like a spree, like a 2 3 hour spree, and
Wow.
yeah, it was. And I was on, yeah, like I said before, like five different drugs.
Were you by yourself?
Yes, I was by
Okay.
myself. So I started off the night like I was drinking and doing drugs with my friends.
Hmm.
And I had the problem that I just never could stop.
Right.
Right. So they all went home like normal people. And I kept going by myself. That's how I knew like it was bad because I was, I just, like I said, couldn't stop. And
Hmm.
then because I was so out of my mind, I went and did that.
Okay. So then what happened next?
So I was on my way home. And it's a miracle. Nobody was hurt. I didn't hurt anybody. On my way home, I was pulled over by like 10 cop cars. They had weapons pointed at me. They told me to get out of the car. I was handcuffed, thrown in the back of a cop car, and
Hmm.
then I was driven to the Las Vegas jail. And they just, a 20-year-old kid, not a not raised in this type of life. I'm now surrounded by all these criminals and drug addicts. It was terrible, horrible,
Yeah.
and yeah, it was
Okay.
insane.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, oh my gosh, like I can only imagine what your mom is going through at this point.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
she was panicking.
Hmm.
She was freaking out. I mean, she got a call that her son just committed all these crimes, and at the time I was facing, because of the charges that they had against me, I was facing a lot of years in prison,
Hmm.
like 50 years possibly, as
Right.
a 20-year-old kid.
Yeah.
So yeah, my mom was very nervous, very nervous. She was all types of emotions, upset, nervous, but she was there for me
Hmm.
big time.
So you get sentenced, and
Yes.
and then what happens?
So I was sentenced about a year later.
Hmm.
It takes time for, things for you to get sentenced. And after my sentencing, I was still doing drugs, even in the jail. Right. My drug addiction was so bad.
Hmm.
Um, and one day I was caught by an officer in the jail, doing drugs or smoking a cigarette, something like that. And I that night they sent me to my prison. I don't know if you know the difference between jail and prison. Like jails where they hold you before sentencing. So I was sent to my prison, and that night after I got caught, I said to myself, like, I can't do this anymore. Like, how low can I possibly get? Like, I'm a drug addict in prison. Like, and I was gonna lose all my money. I was gonna take money from my family and friends just to support that habit because it's very expensive in prison to have a habit like that. And I just said that night, I was 21 years old, like, I can't do this anymore. And I haven't done anything since. This is like 7 years ago.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So you never went to rehab or anything?
No,
No.
I never went to rehab. I always
Mm.
tell people too, like, I'm sorry, I did go to rehab before prison. The judge made me go to a rehab for 30 days.
Gotcha.
But right after that, right after I got out of the rehab, I just got right back to
Hmm.
doing drugs.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah. So it sounds like you had to be the one to make the decision that you were really going to
For
stop,
sure.
and you hit that bottom in
For
prison.
sure. Hmm.
I gotcha. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So you get sentenced to, you said, 8 years?
They gave me 8 years.
Hmm.
I ultimately did only six of the years. But yeah, 8 years. It felt like that was gonna be forever,
Yeah.
you
Oh, I
know.
bet. But this is when everything kind of shifts for you, is when
Yes,
you start your prison term. So how
for
how
sure.
did how did this happen? How did you find your faith? How did you find God in prison?
So there was an incident that happened with a Nazi
Hmm.
where like I fasted on Yom Kippur for the first time. And after the Yom Kippur fast, I broke the fast with like a non-kosher meal, and like a Nazi with a swastika tattooed on his head, because there's like a lot of Nazis in the prison system. He came up to me and he said to me, he saw that I was Jewish,
Hmm.
and he was like, "I don't understand you Jews. Like you fast and you pray, but you eat non-kosher, right?" And like when he said that to me, and this could really apply to anybody, whether they're Muslim, Christian, Jewish, like it really, like when he said that to me, I understood, okay, I'm Jewish.
Hmm.
Like so there's I should be that, right? And at the time, that's what I was thinking. So this like kind of sparked me to have to understand more about my faith and to get closer to God.
Mhm.
So when I got to so when I was in my prison, I just started I dove headfirst into Judaism,
Mhm.
right? And the religion literally saved my life, right? Like it became the foundation of my healthy living, my positive and healthy living going forward. And not just religion, but just having a closeness to God,
Mhm.
right? And learning to pray. But there was also other things too. Working out was a huge thing for me. Working out was huge. Eating healthy, meditation, breath work. Yeah, but I realized that I needed to. I was lucky in a sense to go to prison because it was like a new beginning,
Right.
right? And I
Mhm.
was able to, create a new foundation for myself.
I'm thrilled to unveil an exclusive offer from Therapy Notes just for you. Are you navigating through a storm of paperwork and a maze of appointments? Anchor yourself in the serene harbor of Therapy Notes. Celebrated as the pinnacle of electronic health records, Therapy Notes is the guiding light in the bustling world of mental health care. Their 24/7 live phone support is a testament to their commitment, reflected in a brilliant 4.9 star rating on trustpilot.com and Google. And Therapy Notes offers a suite of solutions that cater to your every need: effortless billing, efficient scheduling, meticulous note taking, and cutting edge telehealth services. And there's exciting news for prescribers. The launch of ePrescribe is here to revolutionize your practice. Considering a switch from another EHR, Therapy Notes promises a seamless transition, importing your demographic data for free so you're ready to sail smoothly from day one. Join the ranks of over 100,000 mental health professionals who have already charted a course with Therapy Notes. You can get a 2-month free exploration, no strings attached. Simply click the link in the show notes or sail straight to checkout with promo code LISA at therapynotes.com. That's promo code LISA, LISA, at therapynotes.com. Plunge into the Therapy Notes voyage today and discover why it's the beacon of the industry. With Therapy Notes, you're not just choosing an EHR, you're setting a course for success. Yeah. And you don't hear a lot of stories about a new beginning. You hear about the stories of
Hmm.
people going to prison and then they come out, they commit another crime and they go back to prison because that's the life that they get used to and that's their
For
new
sure.
normal. So what did you experience in prison? Did you see other people kind of finding a new birth or a new beginning, or was it more of like just, you know, they leave, they get out, they recommit a crime, they come back in, and did you see that too?
So I would say like 90%, I would say,
Mm,
are those people that don't want it, they don't change. So
mm,
like they get to prison and somebody told me one day, like when I first got to prison, he was like, you can either get worse or you can get better. Right. So like it's just that it's unfortunate because these are grown men. Like I was one of the younger guys over there, but these are like 30, 40-year-old guys who, when they get to prison, they, first of all, they don't take responsibility. They might have taken responsibility to the judge and say, okay, I'm guilty, but it's always somebody that they blame. This guy ratted on me, or if I wasn't here, if they don't take responsibility, that's a horrible thing, right? Especially as an adult and as a man. And then they make the decision. After that decision, they make the decision to just waste their time in prison and just kill their time. That's what the expression that they use, kill their time, so that when they get out, they can just get back to what they were doing before. And a lot of the times the guys just do the same thing even in prison. Like there's a lot of it's a whole life and society in there. So there can be guys selling drugs, there can be guys doing drugs, there can, gambling, all types of things that go on in there. And they make that decision from the start. I'm sorry, I'm gonna be mad at the world. I'm gonna not take responsibility for this. And I'm just gonna do the same thing. And recidivism is huge.
yeah.
It happens all the time. So when I was there, all that that's why it's so important to, obviously raise a healthy family and teach them manners and teach them all these good things, because all the seeds that were planted when I was a kid, when I went to prison, I was like disgusted by my surroundings. So that really helped me, you know, to make that decision to get better in all ways possible and not be like all the people around. Not saying they're bad people, but I don't want to be, I don't want to be 30, 40 years old in prison, in and out of prison, so.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because I hear so many different things and themes in your story. It's like on one hand you were this accomplished football player, but you also knew to be accomplished, you had to take responsibility and put effort into it and become that player that you dreamed to become, right? But on the flip
Mhm,
side of that, you were also experiencing some other issues that you were dealing with depression and anxiety. And so that's how, how you were introduced to drugs and alcohol, like that
mhm,
helped numb those feelings. So, I mean, I just think that it's like two sides of a coin, but ultimately, when you got into a place where you were like, you took responsibility and ownership of how you got yourself there, you didn't deny it,
mhm.
you owned it. It's like that's kind of all when it just kind of came to a head. And it sounds like you had to make that decision. Who am I going to be moving forward in my life? And
Sure.
wow. So you did other things. You had your workouts, you were eating healthy.
Yes.
I'm guessing you were doing all those things the best that you could because I can't imagine that they're coming in with a nutrition plan at the prison and saying, what type of protein would you like today? And what
Yeah.
vegetables, but I also am really curious about like who in prison supported you and helped you because I know that you were surrounded by some people that sound really amazing. Like I never would expect to hear about these types of people being in prison, but they had their own
Hmm.
stories of what got them there. But can you share a little bit about your friends that you connected with or the people that helped you?
Yeah. Ever from the start of when I was first arrested until the last day that I spent in prison, I've met like 95% of them were probably not the best people to be around, but I've met like every step of the way such good people over there, right? Whether they were Jewish or non-Jewish, especially a lot of older guys, like in their 50s and 60s, that they have so much wisdom, to go through to make so many mistakes in life. I mean, you do learn a lot at the end of the day. Like, I just had so many guys, they saw that I was a young kid, and random, like the guys in there, they would come up to me and just give me wisdom, give me advice. um it started off in the beginning of my sentence with like non-Jewish people, where they would really help me out.
Mhm.
But later on, I got to a prison in New York called Otisville, and that's where there's like a lot of Jewish inmates, and not just Jewish inmates, but like actual rabbis, right? And they were in there for whatever reason, like usually fraud. But they also changed their life around, and you know these people, these are the people that I hung around with, that I attracted myself to. I didn't hang around with the drug addicts or the guys who are joking around or not taking life seriously.
Mhm.
That I was with people who dedicated themselves to learning Torah, learning the Bible, working out, taking college courses, even in prison. There was there if you in prison, if you want to find good, you can,
Mhm.
you know.
Mhm.
So I surrounded myself with I had a really good support system. I felt alone in a sense, but there are guys there that want to do better too.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like a lot of like, I had a next door neighbor in prison. He was like a 56-year old guy, African American guy, and he's like, this person, just every day he would just give me so much like wisdom. It's so amazing. It amazes me. Like, some people are like jokesters and clown, like they like to
Mhm.
like everything's like a joke in life. But this person, every time I saw him, all he had was like wise words to impart to me,
Mhm.
and like one thing he told me that I'll never forget. He asked me, what is a human being's greatest potential? And he said that it's your ability to help another person, right? Like these are the things that he would tell me like every
Mhm.
day.
Wow.
And yeah, I met amazing people in
Yeah.
prison, amazing people.
So as you're doing your sentence, you think you have 8 years, but you ended up doing 6. What was it like for you to transition out of prison? Like, can you share a little bit about how that all
Yeah,
happened?
for
And
sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's so funny. Like today, I have so many of the same practices in prison out here. Maybe you can call that like being institutionalized, but it helps me. So like I used to wake up every morning, I used to pray, I would work out, I would eat healthy, and I still do those same things today, right? I even work out the same workouts that if I had legs on Sunday, I still do legs on Sunday
Right.
while I'm free. So it's I just I mean for other people like that 90% that I was talking about where they're just doing bad things, for them to get out, it's a very hard transition. But I started getting out while I was inside,
Okay.
right? So I I just did so many healthy things for my mind, body, and spirit that, I built a foundation for myself that when I was free, just think while I'm like saying it now, I'm realizing it was much easier to transition to freedom. And we're human beings. We adapt quickly to our situation.
Yeah. Yeah. And it sounds like you developed quite a bit of discipline. You said you called it
Yes.
institutionalization or
Yeah.
institutionalized, but it sounds like, I mean, but it also sounds like it's stuck. I mean, discipline is freedom, right? I mean, I think that's
Hmm.
that's a wonderful concept for people. So you get out, and then what happens for you?
So I get out. I spent a year in a halfway house. The halfway
Okay.
house, I don't know if you know what that is.
I mean, I know what
Um,
it is, but if you'll share
maybe
what
the
halfway house,
audience.
yeah, if you tell them
So
about that.
it's like basically like what it says, halfway house. It's so you're half free. You can go out like during the day and you can work. And then at night you just have to like sleep in, I wouldn't really call it a prison, but it's hard to explain. It looks like a big warehouse where they just have like a bunch of beds. There's like probably like 100 guys, ex-inmates, and they house them there. So you have to go in every night to sleep. So I did it a year in that halfway house, and then I got out. And a few months later, my book came out. Finally got published after 4 years after I wrote it.
Mm.
And yeah, and then I went on that Meaningful People podcast. That kind of blew up, and there's a lot of worried parents and teachers and stuff like that unfortunately there's so many teens that are dealing with mental health and drug addiction, and they saw that, okay, I could be a good tool to go and speak to these kids and connect with them. So that's kind of what I've been doing ever since. And
Okay.
I'm also like individually, I put myself out there like on Instagram, or I put my number out there because I want to be accessible to, like, I'm already speaking to a lot of teens and young adults, even just individually, that they're struggling like really bad. It's sad. And that's my whole like mission right now is to, be out there to help them.
Yeah. So is that your job, I guess, right now? Like you wrote your book.
No, so,
Okay. Yeah. Do you
oh,
have a job?
sorry. Yeah.
No, I was just curious. Like,
So,
that'd be great if that was your job.
yeah. So eventually, like, so I do motivational speaking. So that's, I guess you could say that's kind of my job, but I also do sales for medical supplies, dermal fillers.
Okay.
And, but I plan on making like the motivational speaking a full-time thing. Also, just like maybe getting into becoming a therapist or something in that field, because that's what wakes me up in the morning is to help others who are struggling like me, so
Nice.
yes.
Nice. Okay. Well,
Yep.
I just want to put it out there. If anyone is looking for a motivational speaker to help teens, young adults, then definitely give Shawn a message or a call. And I'll put all of the links to your information in the show notes, your book and your Instagram. Anything else that we should share about you for our listeners to find you or get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I guess I'm on Instagram. Yeah,
Okay.
that's probably the best place to find me is on Instagram. It's like the only social media that I use.
Okay.
I'm very accessible, like whether it be like I was saying before, like individuals who need help, or if they want me to come speak anywhere to a group, I'd be happy to do that. And I'm speaking to a lot of places, and I'm getting a lot of good feedback. It's not easy to get a group of teenagers to pay attention and to be like engaged, but it's working right now, and it's they love the story, and I'm seeing a lot of good feedback. A lot
Yeah.
of it's helping a lot of people.
Great. I do have one more question.
Of course,
And I'm really curious about, do you miss football?
yes, I do. I
Yeah,
really do. It's actually like I miss it so much I can't even watch it.
really.
Like when you if you break up with your ex, you can't look at any pictures or something. So
Right.
that's how I
Yeah.
am with football. So it's like that was like my first
Hmm.
love. So like when I see that, it's like, oh man, like that should be me out there. But everything works out for the best, and I do play sometimes just for fun with
Yeah.
friends. Yeah.
Well, I definitely want to be on your team if I'm ever find myself in a any type of flag football situation.
Flag
I want to
football.
be on
Okay.
your on well, that would be as far as I get.
Yes.
Yeah, I was just thinking like how hard that must be. And being an observant Jew, you can't really watch the college football on
Yeah, you can't
Saturday.
watch any college
Yeah.
football.
So that's probably a good
You
thing, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I just, thank God, I'm at a point in my life where I'm seeing the fruits of everything I've been through. So like, if I was back on drugs, if I was, you know, I'm out there, helping others, and the people are telling me that I'm helping them, and that they're inspired. So just like that is such a blessing in
Mhm.
itself to see that, because if it wasn't for that, then I would probably learn how to deal with it, but it wouldn't be as happy. Like it's a good feeling to see what's going on right now,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Well, great. Well, it sounds like you have a little bit of closure around the football. Just
For
a little bit.
sure.
Yeah.
For
Okay.
sure. Yeah.
I was wondering
And I'm
if you
also
did.
getting another thing too is those guys are huge. They're like 300 pounds, like they're fast. It's so that helps me with the closure too, just saying that, it's also it's very violent, dangerous sport.
Hmm.
Those guys, when they're done playing football, they're on pain medication. It's also a mental health problem over there too, because they're getting hit in the head a lot. So
Yeah.
it's yeah, I miss it, but I spent 10 years of my life doing it.
Yeah.
So I'm appreciative of that.
Yeah. And now
Yes.
you've moved on to helping others. And
Yes.
what did the guy say? What was the question he asked you? What is the
What
human?
what is your what is the human's greatest potential?
Yeah.
And he said your ability to help another
And here you
human.
are, just by
Yeah,
sharing your story. And
for sure.
I'm convinced. Well, oh my gosh, Shawn, thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you.
onto the podcast. And like I said earlier, I'll put all of your links in the show notes, and hopefully you'll get some followers and maybe even some potential speaking engagements. So I wish you the
Definitely. That would
best.
be great.
Thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Please note that the therapy show with Lisa Mustard is for informational and entertainment purposes only and not a substitute for professional medical or mental health advice. Always consult with your therapist, doctor, or physician before implementing any suggestions from this show. On the therapy show with Lisa Mustard, we provide insights that should not replace medical or psychiatric advice. Your unique situation provides personalized attention from your healthcare professional. The Therapy Show with Lisa Mustard is edited and engineered by Chelsea Weaver. If you're looking to start a podcast or ready to take the editing off of your plate, be sure to visit chelseaweaverpodcasting.com. Well, that wraps up another episode of The Therapy Show with Lisa Mustard. I know there are hundreds of thousands of podcasts out there, and I'm thankful you've chosen to listen to mine.
Be sure to visit lisamustard.com to access the show notes and discover more fantastic content.
and I'd be grateful if you subscribe to the show. Thank you.